Hi everyone, my name is David Barris and I'm the Curriculum Development Specialist for Global Classrooms DC as part of UNA NCA. This presentation, Getting Started Model UN, was given on September 1st as a webinar to some of our teachers that signed up for it. However, if you could not make it, then we are recording it for you and going to get across the main points that we gave in the webinar. And hopefully by the end of this you'll have a good understanding of what Model UN is, and how you can better teach it in your classrooms or after school. So to get started, like I said, my name is David Barris. You'll also be interacting with two very important people throughout this school year. One of them is Megan Penn. She's our Director of Global Education, as well as Nicole Bohannon, who's our Program Coordinator. I'm going to be giving this presentation by myself, but if you ever need to contact any of us, Megan's contact info is at the end of this presentation, which I'm sure you have by now. So if you ever need to contact us, we are more than happy to answer any of your questions. So to get started, Global Classrooms DC provides curriculum, activities, training and support, professional development, simulations, and a year-end Model UN conference, which is going to be taking place in the spring. We introduce and strengthen understanding of global issues, and we develop and strengthen key skills, including public speaking, writing, and negotiation. So we are essentially the Model United Nations wing of UNANCA. Like the slide says, we help your delegates as well as you better learn about what the UN does, as well as enhance your skills that you have and that you need for Model UN, like public speaking, writing, and negotiating. Moving on, well, what is Model United Nations? Model UN, or MUN as some people like to call it, is where students act as a country to the United Nations. They are the delegate of that country, and they simulate conversations and topics that are discussed within the UN. So, for example, within the Security Council, currently an issue that they're discussing is the situation in Syria, the Syrian civil war. If your delegate is within the Security Council in our spring conference, this is one of the topics that they're going to be discussing. So they're going to learn what their country stands is on the issue, their history of the country, as well as the culture of their country, to determine whether or not they sort of align with the culture of Syria. Additionally, during these Model UN conferences, students will write speeches, negotiate, participate in conflict resolution with other countries, and the end result, write resolutions or solutions to the problems at hand that are given to them as topics. So, quickly introducing the United Nations. It is an international organization comprised of 193 member states or countries, and is a forum for discussing issues pertaining to international peace and security. Different bodies and committees within the UN cover and discuss different global issues. So again, the Security Council is going to talk about more issues that are pertaining strictly to international peace and security, while let's say the General Assembly deals with more all-encompassing topics like human rights or women's rights or child soldiers, things of that nature. So we won't get into the specifics now of the differentiation between different types of topics and different types of committees, but just so you know, there are many different types of committees within the UN. So why is Model UN important? Well, as a senior at the George Washington University right now, I've been doing Model UN since I was in middle school, and I still do it at GW, and it's one of the best things I've ever done with my extracurricular career. It prepares students to be young leaders at home and abroad within their schools, or if they have the chance to go abroad, it certainly prepares them to do so. It introduces them to new issues outside of their city and country. I like to think that as I've done Model UN, you become a world citizen, and it definitely prepares you to do that. And it strengthens and develops skills that you need in and outside the classroom. Critical thinking, writing, researching, public speaking, and negotiating are just some of them that you learn, and so I think some of the most important that you learn as a delegate within Model UN. So the flow of debate in Model UN, this is a fairly simplified version of how debate goes. within a Model UN committee. We're going to go through it fairly quickly, and you'll obviously be getting much more information on this within your facilitations manuals and lesson plans that we give you throughout the year. So to start in a Model UN committee, you first start with roll call. What this entails is really just taking attendance for what countries are present within the committee. Then the countries decide on what they're going to talk about. This is setting the agenda. This is this is for committees that have more than one topic, but since all our committees this year within conferences that we will be hosting will only have one topic, this is really just a formality. Moving into debate, there's two types of debate. There's formal debate and informal debate. Formal debate is what you always start out with, and this begins with the speakers list. The speakers list is a list of countries that once they raise their placard, which is the sign that they hold stating their country's name on it, they raise their placard at the beginning of the committee when the chair calls for speakers, and they get put down on a list. The order that they are on in the list is the order in which they speak in. Usually the speaking time, which will be set by one of the delegates, ranges between 30 seconds to a minute, and this is the time for delegations from their specific countries to outline what their goals are for the committee and how they feel about the certain issue that they're discussing. Once you get through a majority of the committee on the speakers list, the chair can entertain motions to go into informal debates, which include moderated caucuses and unmoderated caucuses. Moderated caucuses is just like discussions you have in the classroom when you as the teacher call on students that raise their hand. For moderated caucuses in Model UN, there has to be a specific topic and a specific speaking time for each delegate, and once they're called upon, they can speak for the allotted speaking time and speak on the topic that is designated for that caucus. Unmoderated caucus is a suspension of the rules, and you're allowed to get up and move freely around the committee room, and this is when students as delegates will be forming their blocks, as we like to call them, or groups of countries in which they begin to formulate ideas for a resolution, which, like I said before, is the end solution to the topic, or the issue rather, that they're discussing within committee. And then once after we've gone back and forth between the speakers list, moderated caucuses, and unmoderated caucuses, throughout the whole time they'll be writing resolutions, which they'll be gathering ideas from all members within their group of nations that have allied together. Once their resolution is finished, they hand it to the chair. The chair looks it over, makes sure it's all good grammatically and formatted the right way. Then you move into the close of debate, which is you can no longer obviously speak on the speakers list or have moderated caucuses or unmoderated caucuses, and then you move into voting procedure, which is where you vote on the resolutions that the delegates wrote. This is very simplified. It's a very skeleton sort of diagram of how committee flows. Throughout the year, we'll be running mini simulations, or you as the teachers will be running mini simulations to show your delegates how the flow of debate goes, because that's one of the most important things to learn about within Model UN. The next most important thing within Model UN is the Model UN rules and procedure. Now, these are not all of them, but there are quite a few more, but these are some of the most important that we found for the teachers need to teach their students, so that they can become great delegates within the committee room. So we're going to just go through them one by one. So a point of order is when a delegate believes that the chair has made an error in running the committee. What essentially this means is that if the chair makes a mistake, the delegate is allowed to raise his placard and say point of order and allowed to correct the chair, obviously in a respectful manner, but this is just so that the committee stays on topic, stays on task, and also is run the correct way. The next point that a delegate can raise is a point of information, which is really just a question. After a delegate makes a speech on the speakers list, and if there's still time on the clock, then the chair is allowed to open up the floor for points of information, which again are questions. The delegates that just listen to the speech can ask the delegate who gave the speech a question about what he or she just said. The next point is a point of parliamentary procedure, and this is when a delegate has a question about the rules. I myself, as a delegate many times before, have used this motion numerous amounts of times when I'm confused about what's going on in the committee, and this is just for the delegate to clarify for themselves. The last point that we have is a point of personal privilege, and this is when the delegate is experiencing physical discomfort, like, for example, is unable to hear what a delegate is saying, unable to hear what the chair is saying, or if they just have to go to the bathroom or leave the room for a second. They just say point of personal privilege, and the chair has to grant it. So these are the 4 most important points that we think delegates will need to know, and definitely you should know so you can teach your delegates. This is just an example of a UN resolution from the General Assembly. The UN writes and passes resolutions which act as suggestions to solve the issue or topic being discussed. So to the left is the example. It's formatted in a certain way. We're not going to worry too much about the format right now. You will get to that when you get to your resolution lesson. So there are 2 things that are included within resolutions that are the most important for you to know. And that's the preamble, which is just really the introduction to the topic and necessary background information, and any pieces of information or past actions that the UN has taken that you think should be included within the resolution. And then you have the operative clauses. These are the actions and solutions that your countries or countries within the entire UN are going to take to solve the problem at hand. So there are certain phrases that you're supposed to use that we give the delegates and you. They're called operative phrases or preambulatory phrases to start off your one clause that you're writing. And again, we'll get more into that once we get to our resolution lesson later in the year. So how do you start a multi-UN club? Well, for high school and middle schools, it's fairly simple. You don't really need much funding because it's all funded through the students that come to a conference and pay for their conference to go to. Or if the school has the funding to pay, then that's obviously the first thing that you need to find out. So you need to get permission from your school and follow the guidelines for starting a club. All of your schools should have that readily available to you. And you need to identify a faculty advisor to teach material and prepare students for conferences. Then, obviously, you need to recruit members and hold meetings. If you're listening to this recording, you probably will become the faculty advisor, and then it is your job to recruit members, so delegates and students for your club, and hold weekly meetings just to update them on what's going on, as well as teaching them certain skills that you're going to learn as well throughout the year. Some teachers choose to incorporate multi-UN and global education into the classroom versus an after-school activity. Again, that's for you to find out with your school as to whether or not you could teach it as a class or if you could teach it as an after-school extracurricular activity. GCDC has curriculum and lesson plans developed that meet the Common Core standards, and we run curriculum similar to teaching another class with in-class activities, homework, and simulations alongside lessons on global issues, the UN, and other countries. So again, whether it's a class that you're teaching or an after-school club that you decided to take on, this is basically we're providing you curriculum to help you learn about the UN and to help your students and to help you teach your students about the UN and Model United Nations in general. So how do you run a MUN club? Like we stated, a faculty advisor, they need to motivate the students, sign up and attend Model UN conferences, prepare them to train their students for these conferences they're going to attend. Preparation-wise, you need to learn about the UN, its history, and how it works, the rules and procedure, which is what we went over just a little while ago, and researching the country, conference topics, preparing position papers, practicing speeches, and learning how to write resolutions. If that all seems a bit tricky to you right now, that's totally fine. We have, within our lessons, we have facilitators manuals that will explain all of that. Members and meetings. So the number of students really depends on how available you are and how available the students are. Both a large or small MUN club are perfectly fine. There are benefits to both. It's really what your school would want, what you would want, and what your students would want. Meetings should, like we said, be a minimum of once a week, but also flexible based upon your availability, the student's availability, and the school's availability. One big thing that we like to profess to our teachers is that no prior experience in Model UN is necessary. It's obviously helpful, but there's much more. But it's much more important for the teacher to be dedicated to the students in the club. What I like to say is you can't really teach anyone to you can't really teach anyone to debate certain topics, but you can certainly teach everyone to be a Model UN delegate, and then debating comes naturally from there. Learning Model UN is really just basically learning the rules and procedure and the flow of debate. Once you have those skills, it'll be very easy to incorporate debating and negotiating based on the country that you are representing. So it's not necessary to know Model UN, and that's why we are here to help you. So Model UN conferences occur nationally and globally every year for a number of age groups. GCDC hosts an annual spring Model UN conference at the State Department for grades 5 through 12. That's going to be tentatively on April 26th of 2016, and we'll repeat that at the end of this presentation. Schools register for the conferences, and they get assigned countries based on topics and committee preferences. This is all very self-explanatory once you register for a conference. And if you're outside the DC area, check with your local global classrooms and UNA chapter to find out about their Model UN conferences. It's very easy Google search of what your UNA chapter is, as well as your global classrooms chapter, and then they should have resources for Model UN conferences in the area. GCDC can certainly help you with teaching and training, which I've been explaining throughout this presentation. So we provide professional development workshops on topics including starting a Model UN club, the United Nations, rules of procedure, topical webinars, conference preparation, and certainly a lot more. These are just the main and most important ones that we offer, and from there we can even send Model UN mentors to the classroom to help you run simulations, explain the rules, and provide assistance. This is really great, in my opinion, for new teachers that are not as confident as they want to be with running Model UN simulations. I myself have been a Model UN mentor for my own university since I've been a freshman, and it certainly helps when someone who's experienced comes in and tells you and helps you run a simulation. We also have available or are available for help online through Global Classroom's DC discussion boards and for teacher and the For Teachers section on the UNA NCA website. Lastly, we are always available on the phone or email if you have any questions. We're more than happy to answer them. So at a glance, this is some of our most important events and things that are happening during this year. So I'm sure you already know this, but on November 17th, we're having our Model UN training conference. This is highly encouraged to go to, especially for new schools and new teachers that want to learn more about Model UN. We're going to be having pre-programmed surveys before the conference as well as after the conference to ask what we could do better at. And then, of course, we have our April 2016 Spring Model UN Conference at the State Department. Like I said before, that date is going to be tentatively April 26th, so mark that date in your calendars. We have updated facilitation manuals and changes in conference fees, which, again, you're going to get all that information throughout the year. Our GCDC topics for 2015-2016 have just been finalized. So like I said, certainly for the Security Council, we have the situation in Syria and many more interesting topics for the students to discuss. We have new professional development workshops and webinars like this one, and we'll also be having a full day professional development workshop at our November 17th training conference for teachers that want to learn more about parliamentary procedure and other quick tricks and tips for Model UN. We also have, which is something we're really looking forward to, is our Universal Declaration of Human Rights competition. This is where you as the teacher can get your students involved with illustrating one or two different articles from the UN Declaration of Human Rights. And we at UNA NCA are going to choose the best ones from each school, and just hopefully be able to display them at our Spring Multi-UN conference at the State Department. That should be really exciting. Again, we have webinars and events discussing careers in education and international affairs, and information on critical language programs and study abroad opportunities, mainly all which are coming from the State Department. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to contact us. Certainly, contact us by phone or email. All the information is right here. And you certainly definitely follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We regularly post on both of these and all social media really. So definitely get your kids to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and you yourselves as well. So that's the entire presentation. We hope that was helpful for you, getting you on your way with Multi-UN. And like we said, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us.